Good afternoon. I guess a few things have gone on since we got together today. We've been informed that the USOC in Boston 2024 released a joint statement stepping back from the Boston 2024 bid for to represent the U.S. in the 2024 Olympics. And I guess what I would say is that is certainly their call. I do want to commend Steve Paliuka and the team at Boston 2024 for the work that they've done to put a very credible bid together that I think we all agree contains a lot of really useful information that we will incorporate into some of our economic development and transportation planning activities with the city and with others. And we remain committed to receiving probably sometime, as we said, toward the end of the month, the beginning of next month, the full report from the Brattle Group, which after we have a chance to read it and talk about it, we'll make available to the public.
Is there anybody or any group that's to blame for this not going forward?
I don't think about it that way. I mean, I think if you think about the way the New York process worked, they put together a pretty strong bid. They worked very hard on rethinking a number of things about economic development in the city of New York, and they did not win, but they chose to use that information and that framework for a series of initiatives that they pursued that they think work pretty well for New York. So I think any process like this always has its ups and downs, and I think in this particular case, we all made very clear, the Senate President, the Speaker, and I, back in March, that sometime toward the end of July, the beginning of August, we would have a pretty comprehensive report from a panel of experts that would help us understand what the role of the Commonwealth would be with respect to hosting the games in 2024. And that's been our position all along. And I think in some respects, if that time frame, for whatever reason, didn't work for others, we pretty much announced it in March and stuck to it all the way through.
Are you more disappointed or relieved that this chapter is behind?
I don't want to speak for them on this. I'll let them speak for themselves. But I think as I said, some of the analysis, especially around some of the economic development opportunities that were rolled out in that proposal, and some of the transportation initiatives, like the K-Circle piece, I think we're pretty thoughtful and are things that we can learn from and incorporate into our own activity going forward.
Is it just timing, or do you have a feeling that if you got that month extra, it still would have been more of a no from your side?
Look, I'm anxious. I'm as anxious as, and I know all four of us are anxious to see what the Brattle Group has to say about all this, because to some extent they've been far deeper into the weeds than any of us have been. But I think of it as a timing issue, and the reason I say that is we made very clear in March what our time frame was associated with this, and we made pretty clear that we were not going to have this report until sometime around the beginning of August. And nobody ever said that was a problem until about a week ago. And
go forward, and could they theoretically give you a thumbs up a month late?
Well, we'll get what we get from them, and I'm anxious to see it. And again, I think that will end up being a useful document for us as we think about transportation investments and infrastructure activity and economic development going forward. Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So you feel like the Brattle pulled the plug prematurely on this?
Say again?
Sorry, do you feel the USOC pulled the plug prematurely?
I'm not going to question whatever decision the USOC makes. I mean, they have a process they need to pursue and a set of decisions that they need to make. Based on what I saw in the statement, one of their concerns was sort of the robust but fairly typical for us public debate that was going on with respect to the Olympics here in Massachusetts and here in Boston. But our view all along was that sometime toward the end of July, the beginning of August, we would have a Brattle Group report, panel of experts that would help us figure out exactly what the expectations would be with regard to the Commonwealth going forward on this.
So they change the rules of the game in the middle of the game?
Look, they obviously have externalities and issues that they have to deal with as well, as far as all this is concerned. But there's a pretty complicated initiative all the way around.
Does it have to move to L.A.? Does the bid go to Los Angeles now?
That's way above certainly my pay grade. I can't speak for these two, but we've been much more focused on our conversations with the city and with 2024 and with some of the other communities that have been involved in this process. I've had 2 brief conversations with the USOC, and whatever decision they make, obviously we wish, we would like to see the U.S. properly represented in this whole thing.
Were you pressured by the USOC to make a statement of support for the bid, either late last week or early this week? And also, Mayor Walsh has said he thinks the opposition was driven by 10 people on Twitter. You described it as robust. I'd love to get your take on A, pressure, and B, the nature of the opposition.
Well, the USOC has certainly been interested in knowing kind of where we're at, on all of this stuff for the past few weeks. But we have basically said to them, and I said it to them twice myself, that in 2 calls that I had with them, that we put a process in place, the Speaker, the Senate President, and the administration. We signed legislation last week that basically said that anything associated with taxpayer investments in the Olympics would require, or Olympic-related activity would require the legislature to approve it. I mean, I view us on this one as sort of 3 entities that are all basically representing the same entity here, which is the taxpayers in the Commonwealth of Mass. And the USOC never said, we need to know this by this date. What they said is, where are you, and where are you in your process? And all I did was sort of respond to that. And as far as the second piece is concerned, look, there's a lot of strong feelings on this, and anybody who watched the debate last week, which I did, knows that. And there's been a pretty robust conversation about it. And look, I've lived here my whole life. One of the things I like about living in Massachusetts is we do have loud and robust policy and political debates on stuff like this. Somebody?
I did. I asked if the Senate President and the Speaker would tell us to repeat Matt's question. Are you disappointed with the
I feel that it was a good process in the sense that, first of all, Boston, Massachusetts was chosen. And I therefore feel out of all of the applicants, people looked at Massachusetts as a world-class city that could have hold this type of event. Having said that, after having gone through it and spoken to so many different folks, after seeing some of the reports, I consider all the information that we have gotten to be valuable for us in the future. I consider all the discussions that we've had, whether within this building or outside the building, about how we can improve the way we do things here in Massachusetts. I think that is valuable. So on the whole, I should say, I would consider this to be a good...
Are you relieved or are you disappointed that we're not going to get the...
I don't know if I could see either way, except to say that I think that the process was a good one. And I think also that the process that we chose to go some months ago, in terms of making sure that the decision that we ultimately would make will be based upon good materials by folks who are able to dig into the proposal and to give us their recommendations. Mr. President?
Yeah, I said before at another occasion like this that I loved the big thinking and the fact that leaders stepped forward in the city, 2 groups of leaders over time to put this idea on the agenda, and we won the national attention by being selected as the city and the state. I'm very excited that happened. I wondered about a state of 6.8 million people and what kind of power we needed behind us, financial power and capacity behind us in order to make it real. And if you look at so many of the other venues and so many of the other past games, the national government got behind. And so no matter how big the venue or how small the venue, they had the whole country behind them. We saw no indication that our federal government was going to step up to the plate beyond just the security costs. And to undertake this was going to require an enormous investment in public transportation and various forms of development. And I thought it was a bold move, and I'm glad our folks did that because, as the governor said, a lot of good ideas got put on the table that, like New York, we'll be able to follow up and add on to here in terms of our own plans for the future for our own purposes. And remember, this is a state that less than 5 years ago said we were going to become the national leader in life sciences. We did it. We're one of the 2 most advanced states in green technology because we decided a few years ago our energy future depended upon that. So we have big ideas in Massachusetts. We find the leadership, we step forward, and we do it.
So are you relieved that we did get it?
I'm glad that they put themselves forward as leaders. I'm glad we saw the proposals and the ideas because we're going to be able to use those ideas going forward to build an even stronger economy here in the Commonwealth.
Did the USOC try to bully any of you into sort of coming on board with this thing, strong-arm you at all?
No, I don't feel I was strong-armed or bullied at all. I had several, what I would describe as just very fact-based and process-based conversations about this.
Governor, do you think the national view of
I
this
never
would
had
be
any
Boston-
conversations with them.
Do you think the national view of this would be that Boston didn't make the cut, was rejected by the USOC, or that we walked away because they wanted us to pay for it all?
I don't know how the rest of the country will view this. I do think that it was a real tribute to the folks here, as the Speaker and Senate President said, that Boston was selected in the first place. And I share their view that a lot of the work that was done by, especially by Steve and the team at 2024 around how to think about development in the city will be enormously helpful to us going forward. And as far as the other piece is concerned, we had a time frame, we had a timetable, we announced it in March, and we stuck to it. And I think in some ways, if our time frame wasn't one that worked with the way the USOC was thinking about this, that's unfortunate, but there's not a lot anybody can do about it.
If it's nice to be selected, isn't it not nice to be told no thanks?
I still think we got a lot of really terrific product that we'll be able to use coming out of the process.
Governor, what about, what do you think you might do differently for, say, 2028?
Boys? I'm not really thinking about 2028 at this point. I'm more interested in taking some of the ideas we got out of the 2024 stuff.
Dr. Becker, you seem fairly skeptical of this whole thing from the start. Did the reading that you've done on your own about Olympics of the past lead you to be more skeptical and worried about what this would bring than excited about the prospects of it?
Well, I certainly think the exciting part about the prospect is being able to serve the world, right? Which is really what this ultimately is all about in a big athletic venue. And
the reality of how it would really play out.
Well, but look, I think the part of the reason we asked the Brattle Group to step in here and to provide us with their advice and guidance was to make sure that we understood what the expectations and the commitments would be for the Commonwealth going forward here, recognizing that this is a 10-year drill. And it's not something you can do kind of out of your pocket. I mean, it's literally a big investment: time, focus, energy, money, people, for an extended period of time. And I think and that had a lot to do with why all three of us really wanted to get somebody in here to help us think through this one. I wouldn't call it skepticism, Mike. I would just say that from my point, I never planned an Olympics before. I wanted somebody looking at this who had some experience with this kind of thing and could make sure that the issues that would be important, you'd hate to end up 2, 3, 4 years down the road and figure out that there were some things you wish you knew at the beginning. And I think in some ways that had a lot to do with our decision to bring on the Brattle Group. That wasn't about skepticism. Frankly, it was about a recognition of the size and significance of the endeavor.
If the Brattle Group
Last
comes
question,
back
everybody.
and says that Boston's in a great position to do the Olympics and this looks like it's going to be a real winner for the city, what do you feel like at that point? I mean,
Look, I don't think any of us felt that we could get this thing done any faster. The Brattle people have been working enormously hard on this, and our folks have worked hard with them. And the 2024 people have worked hard with them. But you can't, from our point of view, the time frame we established to begin with didn't change. It's not like we pushed this off a month and said it's going to come a month later. We were saying back in...
disappointed that the Brattle Group, they didn't wait for the Brattle Group to come through.
Well, I certainly think based on what we've been told and the kinds of conversations we've had with the Brattle folks, I expect the report's going to be very detailed and very informative, and I think it'll be a real contribution to the conversation.
I don't think our opinion has changed, if I just may. I don't think our opinion has changed from day one in terms of how we felt this should be handled. I think the very first question asked of all of us, I think probably the major thought that came into mind was money. How are we going to do this? And most importantly, I think everyone involved in this process said no taxpayer money. And that's what the purpose of really the Brattle Group was all about. So the fact that they haven't given us their report at this time, I don't think in terms of changes any of our opinion. The committee and the USOC made their decision and will move forward. But I think from day one till today, we kept what we felt was the right course of action. It was still, I considered to be the right course of action to wait for that report, because quite frankly, looking at Olympic figures, ticket prices and whatnot, I'm not able to decipher in terms of whether those two columns are going to equal each other and no state money is going to be needed. That was the whole purpose of the Brattle Group, and I am still looking forward to what they have to say.
And on the subject of money, the governor took $162 million from the budget you sent him. How are you planning to handle that, Speaker and Senate President?
What do you do?
$162. Sorry,
Override.
When are you guys planning? When are you guys planning to override the vetoes? That we
Very
issued?
soon. Very, very soon.
That's something I can tell you is going to be done probably fairly soon. No offense, Governor. Before September? Depends upon how you would interpret fairly soon.
Thank you.
Very good.